Hello and welcome to Chem Mastery with Dr. D. In this video, I will be talking about carboxylic acids and esters. So carboxylic acids are one of the homologous series of organic molecules. They have the carboxyl group functional group. The carboxyl group consists of a carbonyl group, and to the carbon of the carbonyl you can find a hydroxyl group attached to it as well. This whole group as a whole is called the carboxyl group. The carboxylic acids are named by using the suffix oic acid. So you count how many carbon atoms there are in the compound, including the carbon of the carboxyl group, and then you use the prefix of the which refers to the number of carbon atoms. Use the alkane name, remove the letter E from the end of the name, and replace it with oic acid. So the simplest carboxylic acid is the methanoic acid. This is the one with one carbon atom, so it's called methanoic acid. And if we have two carbon atoms, it's going to be called ethanoic acid. You can also name a substituted carboxylic acid. So if we have a carboxylic acid like this one, the first thing we need to do is to number the chain. And when you number the chain, you give the carbon of the carboxylic acid group as carbon number 1, give it number 1. So you have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have 4 carbons in the chain. So this is going to be butanoic acid. And then look at the substituents. We have hydroxyl group and carbon number 2, and we have a methyl group on carbon number 3. So the overall name is going to be 2-hydroxyl 3-methyl butanoic acid. Carboxylic acid, which has the benzene ring and the carboxyl group, is called benzoic acid. Carboxylic acids are weak acids, so they partially dissociate in water to give the carboxylate ion and the hydrogen ion. This is a partial hydrogenation, or this is a partial dissociation, and the equilibrium lies to the left because most of the acid will be intact, not dissociated in water. Carboxylic acids are weak acids. However, they have typical acidic properties. So when they dissolve in water, they will produce an acidic solution of pH less than 7. They react with metal carbonate to give you salt and carbon dioxide. So ethanoic acid, for example, react with sodium carbonate to give the sodium ethanoate, which is the sodium salt of the ethanoic acid, carbon dioxide, and water. Also, they react with more reactive metals to give salt and hydrogen. So ethanoic acid react with sodium to give sodium ethanoate and hydrogen gas. And finally, they react with bases to give salt and water in a normal neutralization reaction. Carboxylic acid also react with alcohols to give esters. Esters have this functional group which is COO. They have this structure where this is the functional group, the COO with a carbonyl group attached to an oxygen, and we have two alkyl group attached on both sides. This part of the ester comes from the acid and this part comes from the alcohol. In order to produce acid, we can react the produce esters. We can react acids with alcohol, refluxing them in presence of a catalyst, which is a strong acid. We use a strong acid as a catalyst, like sulfuric acid. This reaction is called esterification. In this reaction, we have the acid and we have the alcohol, and then we reflux them or heat them both in presence of the acid catalyst that will give us the ester and water molecule. The water will come from the hydrogen from the alcohol and the OH from the carboxylic acid. And then a new bond will be formed between the oxygen of the alcohol and the carbon of the carbonyl group of the carboxylic acid. This is called an ester. Before we look at concrete examples of esterification, we need to know how to name these esters first. When you name the ester, we use two parts in the name. The first part comes from the alcohol. So you look what alcohol has been used to make the ester, and you remove the anol from the end of the name of the alcohol and replace it with "-ile". So if we have propanol, then it's going to be propyl. And then the second part comes from the carboxylic acid itself. You remove oic acid and replace it with OH. So if we are using methanoic acid, then the second part of the name of the ester will be called methanoate. So the ester that comes from propanol and methanoic acid would be propyl methanoate. The structure formula of the ester, they come from a reaction, as we said, between an alcohol and an acid. So if it's ethanol and ethanoic acid, the structure formula will be CH3COO, CH2, CH3. This is the part that comes from the alcohol, and this is the part that comes from the carboxylic acid. And this is how we draw the overall structure of the ester. Some examples of esterification reaction and naming the ester. So we have this carboxylic acid with this alcohol. This carboxylic acid has 4 carbon atoms in the chain. So this is butanoic acid. And this alcohol has 2 carbon atoms, which is ethanol. So the ester that is formed is called ethyl butanoate. Also, this is ethanoic acid with 1, 2 carbon atoms, and then for the alcohol 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there are 5 carbon atoms, so this is pentanol. So the ester that is formed is called pentyl ethanoate. If we use benzoic acid with something like methanol, this is going to give us the ester, this ester here. This is called methyl benzoate. The uses of esters have they are volatile compounds and they have distinct smells. This is why they are used as food flavoring and in perfume because they have quite a sweet smell. They are also are used as solvents. This is because the esters are polar liquids, and a lot of organic molecules dissolve easily in esters. They also have a low boiling point, so they can easily evaporate. So they are used as good solvents in glues and printing inks. They can also be used as plasticizers, and they are added to plastics during the polymerization to make the plastics more flexible. With time, these plasticizers or these esters will evaporate eventually or will escape, and then the plastic will become more brittle and stiff.